Hey guys, welcome to Fiberchats. You are here today with Irina, the host, and me, Chevyrell. Irina is Fiberchats. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And I'm Chevyrell.
Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. I'm Irina, the host here, and my guest today is Chevyrell. Hi.
Hello.
And you are host of another YouTube channel, so I'm gonna pick your brain today and see what I can learn from you, because I'm a total newbie at YouTube and you've been doing it for a few years now.
Okay.
I want to see your wisdom, like you can advise me something. So I know
I don't have very much wisdom, but if I know any, I'll pass it on.
So I notice you start every episode of your show
with a drink. Grab your drink.
Everybody, I'm gonna do what you do today, and if you guys wanna grab your drink, welcome to my channel. Cheers.
Cheers. So I usually have the martini. Today I have a beer.
Right. Well, I figure I usually have beer, but like today I'll have martini. So we'll swap.
Oh yeah, no. Now I'm at, like, as soon as I saw that you had one, I was like, oh, I should have made one too.
Let's go back to your start of YouTube channel. So yesterday I watched the very first episode, probably a few times actually, because I found it so interesting. What was going through your mind on that day when you decided, you know what, it's time to do my own show?
Oh gosh, it's funny that you mentioned that, because it did cross my mind the other day. I haven't watched that first episode, probably since I edited it. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's probably so cringy to go back and watch that. But when I first started, I started watching knitting podcasts many years ago with the Knit Girls, and they were one of the first podcasts that I'm aware of. And I just always loved the sharing aspect. I grew up like out in the country, so I didn't really have a lot of access to, city things. And I know that a lot of my viewers, the podcast, or for me too, the podcasting world, kind of opens that up to a brand new world. Like when I first started watching Knit Girls, I didn't know what a project bag was. I didn't know all the yarn dyers and things. So because I love it so much, I wanted to share some of the things that I was doing too, because I love seeing other people's art. So any little nugget of information.
Right.
So the reason that I decided to start it when I did is because I got a new phone. It was like a New Year's resolution.
So when you describe yourself on Instagram, at least, there is like nothing you don't do. You do embroidery, you do crochet, you do knitting, you do tie-dye, you do sewing. Like I'm sure I'm missing like a bunch of things.
I want to know how to do all the things.
But
I love
do you see yourself like as a mainly one thing, or you see yourself just as fiber artist, period?
Yeah, I like to learn all things crafting. I grew up with an artistic family on one side and a super crafty family on the other. And to me, those can be different, like they're different mediums, and I kind of meld them all together. So I want to know how to do it all. But fiber is my first love, probably knitting, but I crochet and spin too.
Right. So how do you decide like which project to pick?
Oh, a lot of times, if it's something that I love and I can't put down, like color work, I'll bust through that. And then the other ones will languish. And then when I finish that thing, I'll say, okay, what's next? I try to keep it a rotation, but there's some things that get put off to the wayside. I think we all have a bunch of whips in our bags. Like, how many whips do you have?
How many do you have?
Oh, there are probably, I show everything that I'm working on the podcast, and there's usually like 2 or 3 things that have been started somewhere else. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is in there. but I'm not actively working on them. They've been hibernating for a long time. So not many. I know some people who have like 20. That would overwhelm me.
Well, when you talking about like project bags, are you very organized with your work in progress? Like, do you keep detailed notes where you stopped? What's
No, and I'm laughing because what I started with a knitting group. We met at a coffee shop and I made great friends. If you watched the Sweater Weather video, that's them. Like we used to hang out at a coffee shop every Sunday morning and it was awesome. Well, my friends Diana and Lindsay are really good at keeping project stuff, and I am not. Like I don't do project pages. Lindsay razzes me about it all the time. So no, I'm not. When I pick it back up, I have to think back usually and figure out where I was.
do you have like a preference of what kind of projects you work on? Is it always something like sweater, or you have like a pair of socks sweater?
I like a mix. I like a mix of things. There are some people who like might just knit hats. I need a pair of socks, maybe some color work or something to get my lace, something like that. Always have a stockinette something going. So that's my sitting and talking to people knitting. So yeah, I have. And then sometimes I'll have too many sweaters. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many sweaters. I have to get these off the needles.
So if you were to go to Rhinebeck, what sweater would you put for this year? Like, do you have a favorite?
When I go to Rhinebeck, I was thinking I had Rhinebeck on the brain because I've been watching all the Rhinebeck videos and I had FOMO. I am going to wear when I go my Penguono because that was 2020 was supposed to be my first Rhinebeck. Right. And we know what happened with that. And that was the plan. So I'll wear just to showcase all the crazy yarn that's in it and stuff. Just it's fun.
Are you a huge fan of Stephen West?
I do. I wouldn't say a huge fan, but I have knit Stephen West stuff. I just did the Vertices Unite with Fiber Hustle had a Vertices knit along. And I've knit the Penguono and I love the colors. I love it all. I love it. I want to do it all. I love the crazy funky stuff. I love the natural wools, the sheepy wools.
Your room, like the one that you're in right now, you call it the room of stuff?
The stuff room.
Stuff room.
Yep.
Do you have the same approach to like buying patterns? Is there like a stuff library on your Ravelry? Like, how do you decide what's going to be next? Are you organized? Do you have a queue?
I have many things in my queue, and then I have a library. Usually how I decide what I'm doing next is I have purchased yarn for specific things and I try to get to those things. Like I have purchased, there's like 3 different shawls I've had the yarn for forever. So I try to get to those things. But if something really cool comes up, it'll bump it. I'm very organic. I'm very just however it happens. And then I do try to like keep everything going as best I can.
So let's say you bought 5 skeins of yarn for the shawl, and then bigger and better thing popped on your Instagram and you're like, oh, I have to need that. Would you repurpose the yarn that you bought for a project for a completely different project?
Yes, it has happened, but it depends on how bad I want to knit the other thing. Like I just finished the underwing mitts. I've had that yarn for, gosh, close to 3 years, because I think that was pretty early on in my podcasting. And I knew that's what I wanted to do with it. And I just hadn't had the time. Right. So then when it came, like everything happens for a reason. So it came up, I knew that I wanted to knit that. But there have been other things. It's like, oh, this would be cooler. I like it better. I think we're going to do this instead. Not usually, but it's happened.
Let's go a little bit back. Like I probably should have started with that, but like when did you learn to knit?
I grew up, like I said, with artists and crafters. So my grandma Nada, who was a lefty, as am I, uh, was so excited to have a left-handed grandkid because she'd had four and they were all right-handed,
Right.
that she could not wait to teach me how to crochet. So I crochet left-handed, and I did that when I was very, very little and didn't do anything after that. A bunch more other crafts, but nothing with crochet. And then my mom and my grandma always knit, so I watched it and I loved English styles, like
Right.
flicking it, throwing it is just fun to me. And when I was in my 20s, I'm always artsy. I always have something going on. As you can see, like me doing all the things, you know, I love trying something once and I'm like, I'm going to teach myself how to knit. And it just stuck. So I taught myself out of a book, Stitch and Bitch, Debbie Stoller. It was before YouTube.
Right.
So I always had that in my history, but I taught myself and it's one thing that stuck.
So do you remember like your first projects?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was what I call a weekend knitter. When I first started, I wanted all the bulky things that I could knit in a day and be like, hey, look, I made a scarf, you know, like that's what I wanted. And when I saw that people knit socks, I thought they were crazy. So the first thing I knit was the bulky scarf out of Stitch and Bitch. And I followed, like I said, I read it from, you know, cover to end, and that's what I chose to make.
So
And it went to Goodwill.
We'll come back to that one actually. But like I saw your Instagram. I mean, you knitting some incredible stuff out there. Like it's not that simple or bulky any longer. So at what point did you decide to start challenging yourself?
I get bored. So, you know, I think really what happened is I was still knitting. I was still a weekend knitter. And then I went to my first fiber festival. And that's just like, you know, because I was Michael's, Joann's, that's the only place I got my yarn. So when I went there and saw all the gorgeous colors and saw all the gorgeous knits, that's when I was like, I want to do this because I love puzzles, and really knitting is sort of like a puzzle. Right. So with every technique I learned and rule I learned, I just wanted to keep on learning. And now I've pretty much done all the things that I want to, at least. I haven't steeped yet, but I'm looking at yarn for one that does.
Right. So I saw the video where you're showing how to fix your mistakes. I think it was something with cable where you like unravel half of the, like a huge column, and then you just like boom. And
yeah.
Do you feel like at some point that you achieved the level of proficiency where you're comfortable teaching, like showing techniques and teaching tricks like that? Like,
I have taught. As far as doing the videos, I had this grand plan, my OGs, that's what I call the people who've watched like since the beginning. They know I had this grand plan. I was going to just do like a close-up tutorial. This is how you do it. Because I don't know if there are easy techniques that I just don't do enough that I forget how to do, and I just need to see it. I don't need the explanation. I don't need the, you know, like I just need to watch you do it. So that was my plan. And yeah, I don't have not the dedication's a wrong word for it. I don't know. It seemed like a bigger job than I was good at. I'm not good at planned things, I suppose. My podcast is very organic. I just kind of whatever comes out, comes out.
I don't know about that, because it's like you're still doing it for so long and it doesn't look like disorganized mess. I mean, you're so perfect at editing everything. So I don't know, like I'm sort of like looking up to you in that respect.
So here's the thing. I will get comments and people are like, why are your videos so choppy? And I'm like, because I edit out all the things that I don't feel like people want to see. Long pauses where I can't think about a word. I'm like, what is that word? And then I'll cut out the long pause. I say, so, but, like those kind of things. It's like, you don't need to hear me say like 900 times.
Right.
So,
Okay, so let's talk about editing.
okay.
Between us pros, how long it takes you to edit, because you going like your podcast is like over an hour. How long it takes you to edit that episode?
I usually record on a Thursday and it's up on Friday, like the next Friday. And I take my time. I enjoy editing. I try not to stress myself out about it. And there are just weeks where I'm busy. So like the last episode, I think I had up on Tuesday ready to go. Like I set the time. And there are some times where it's Thursday night and I still haven't hit upload for the next day. It just all depends. And I do it little by little. I don't sit down, and I'm a very spoiled. Like my favorite place to be on Saturday morning is with my iPad in my lap and my coffee in the morning editing. Like that is, I love it. And then I just take it little pieces at a time. So I really don't know. I never like sit all the way through from beginning to end. I enjoy it.
Right. What changed like from the beginning when you first started to now? Do you feel like you sticking to the same pattern of podcast? Do you feel like your audience know you enough that you don't have to like stick to the same thing? Like how did you adapt, and what did you learn?
You ask the best question. Every interview, I love your questions. It's funny because I started out being like, okay, nobody cares about me personally. I'm just going to talk about the knitting. And I think I even said that. I forget what I talk about. Okay. And I'm like, it's just going to be quick and to the point. Well, then the longer that I did it, the more friends I made. And that really is why I'm podcasting, right? I want to participate in the fiber world. And, people comment, I meet people in person. I have made lifelong friends through this journey. So it started out as me being somebody that no one knew, and they just, I just wanted to show my knitting, to, this world of friends I've made, and people actually care, like they send me messages and ask me where I've been, what I'm doing, and they love ditto. And so it did evolve.
Well, when you were talking about your introductory video, right? And there was a reason why I watched it a few times, actually. Because like when you were talking there, you were like, when I watch the podcasts, I wonder about the background story of those people, but like they never talk about themselves. So I decided I'm not going to talk about myself. So this is your only one and only chance to get to know me, basically. And that was sort of.
I suppose I should go watch that, huh? Because I don't remember that.
Grab martini and go watch it.
Is there a way to do a watch part? Well, I don't know. It would probably be part comical and like way cringy. Right. Okay.
Honestly, like when I started my channel, like it wasn't even channel that I started it live on Instagram. And it was basically, I was chatting about something completely unrelated with a friend, Josh Stein. And I was like, I'm having this idea, maybe I'm gonna like interview some of my friends on Instagram, like through live. And he was like, okay, let me just finish my cake and we can go. So it was like so unplanned, like so when I watched that first episode, like part of me is very proud of myself because it was like totally outside of my comfort zone. It's like something I never done, I never planned, not something I'm comfortable with. But on the other hand, it's like it's a little cringy because it's like I didn't know what I was doing, he didn't know what he was doing. It was like total mess, When you think back on your journey, are you proud of yourself, like of where you are now?
I wouldn't say proud. No, like I don't think of it that way. I look back on my journey and am so thankful and grateful, and my heart is so full for all these like super cool people that I've met throughout it. I'm not, there really isn't anything to be proud of, I guess. I don't know. I guess I just don't look at it that way. I love sharing. I love seeing everybody else's stuff. I love it when they participate. It just makes me, it makes me so happy for the people that I've met. Like, that's the best thing about this journey.
Right. When you look at your statistics, first of all, do you look at your statistics in YouTube?
You have the best question. Yes and no. I look at the subscriber number every once in a while, and I noticed I was getting close to 10,000. So we'll have a 10. I'm over now,
right?
But there's going to be a giveaway for that. And I read all my comments and I try to heart all of them, at least, like if I don't reply, I at least try to heart, because that's why I'm doing this. I love reading the comments, and people are so nice, and I love hearing about them. And so I do that. And like the money and watch time and that kind of stuff, I don't. I mean, I have looked at it, but it's not something I do.
Right. Like when you're first starting, right, as a YouTuber, and you have, let's say, your first 50 people watching you, 100 people watching you, and it's like, oh my God, like if you imagine 100 people actually sitting in the room and watching what you say, it's like mind-blowing, right? But then it starts growing and you're getting to the point, well, as of today, I'm at like 1,600, right? And I'm like, okay, it's been 4 months, I'm at 1,600, it's great. And it's like, if I imagine those 1,600, I'm like, oh my God, right? But on the other hand, there are other YouTubers who are doing it for a year and they have like 20,000. Do you compare yourself to others? Do you feel satisfied with your progress? Do you feel unhappy sometimes? Like, what's your relationship with statistics?
Sure. I got like comparing to other people. No, not at all. I love our little corner of the internet, and a lot of the podcasters are my friends. So I guess I don't pay any attention to their subscribers. I mean, I know the people like Grocery Girls. Oh my gosh, they have like 40 some thousand or 50, I don't even know, like, but I never came into it with a goal, I guess, either. Like, it's not like I'm like, I'm going to have a podcast and I'm going to get all these people to follow me. I do remember when you first start out, it's like 50. Oh my gosh, 100, and 1,000 was sort of like my cap. When I made 1,000, I had 1,000 subscriber giveaway. I could not believe that many people watched. And then since then, I've just kind of been like plugging along, and and then one day I looked and I was like, oh my gosh, 10,000 people. And I kind of purposely don't think about it, because it is kind of like 10,000 people are watching me, right, be crazy, because, well, but I think that's why they watch.
When you record your podcast, who do you talk to? Do you have like a particular bunch of people in mind, the person in mind? Are you talking to yourself? Who are you having this discussion with when you're recording yourself?
God, that's a good question. I've never thought of it. I guess I'm just, I don't know. I feel like I'm talking to them, but I'm not picturing viewers sitting on their couches knitting. I just feel like I'm talking to you like I watch podcasts. Like I'm talking to them whenever they are watching, sitting on their couch. Would probably be the best way to describe it.
I mean, I'm just always wondering, because my show is very different, basically, because I always have another person on the other side. So I'm talking to you, right? But then one time I tried to record a video for a giveaway of just myself. And let me tell you, it was like the hardest thing I ever done.
I watched it.
There was just nobody on the other side. So it was like me talking to the camera. And it took me like, 18 takes to record that like 3-minute video. So I find it like much harder. So I'm like always curious, like who do you imagine on the other side?
I always joke. I guess in my head, I feel like it's just a small group of knitters. You know, I'm just talking to some knitters who are watching me talk about my knits or whatever it is I'm making, right? My brain doesn't really go to 10,000 people. That would, I don't know. I guess I try to not go there because it is a lot of people. But when I'm doing it, it's just, I'm just talking, I'm talking to them just like I'm talking to you.
Right. Well, are you ever under stress of like having something to show during your podcast, or let's say you have a busy week but you need to record, like does that stress you out, like the feeling that like you have responsibility to those 10,000 people to show them your stuff?
No, I don't. I never have. I know that there are other podcasters who say that. I think the Knit Girls have said I tried to work on this so I'd have something to show. I don't do that. So I watched so many podcasts before I started. And I kind of figured out what would be, when I did this, I wanted it to be fun. I didn't want to set a timeline on myself, like I'm going to record once a week. I don't remember. I probably touched on that in the beginning too, and I don't remember. But I think at the beginning I was trying to shoot for like every couple weeks. And if I wasn't ready, I just didn't record. And there was a time, you know, I'll tell you, there was a time through the pandemic, I don't think I recorded for a couple months. I just needed, or it was before the pandemic. There was a time where like I needed a break. So there was a longer time between videos, but I just feel like they're watching because they want to, and if they want to see what I make, they'll watch again when I come back. Right. So
well, you said this thing like during one of your episodes where you said that when you watch podcasts, you don't necessarily know if they skipped a week or 2 weeks or whatever. You just get notification and you watch it. So you don't feel pressured to post on schedule necessarily for the same reason, because you think other people watch the same way. When you disappeared for 2 months, did people come looking for you? Did anybody reach out and say like, is everything okay? Like what's going on where you disappeared?
Yeah, I mean, there were a handful of people who were just like, hey, from what I remember, you know, friends that I've made that I know checking on me. I didn't have any angry people like, where were you or where are you? Everyone was like, hey, just checking in to see how things are. It's like, man, I'm like, stuff's heavy right now. And I'm a huge advocate of mental health. And I don't think that I've ever talked about it. Sorry, there's a gnat in here. I don't think I've ever talked about it on the podcast, but I am all for being healthy. So when I needed to take a minute, I took a minute. And I knew that the people who watch me, they love me for me and totally understand. So I never felt any pressure, which was really nice. It makes me sad that people do.
Right. Well, do you ever get like creative blocks because like you do so many things? Like, do you ever get to the period of time when you just don't feel like doing anything?
That's another time that I took a longer time period of recording. I lost my mojo. I'm like, there's no reason for me to record because I've barely been doing anything. So yes, I do go through that. And then I go the opposite and want to cast on all of the things and have to be like, slow your roll. You cannot cast on all of these things.
Okay, so like talking of health and being healthy, how much do you need? Like if you're on a good knitting day, when nothing else interferes, how long would you need?
Oh, I can knit. I'll knit an entire movie and then some. Like I'll knit a whole movie.
Are you ever concerned with like your hands, your shoulders, your like posture, your sitting for a long time?
There have been time, and I take breaks, I get up to go to the bathroom, I get up to get a drink, I might take a break and eat. Sometimes I nap and wake up and it's some more, like there are definitely breaks in there. But if I start feeling uncomfortable, how sometimes if you have a real tight, I talk about Dan's hat, he wants like super bulky yarn on little needles, and I feel like eagle claws. I won't knit that long on that. But if it's just real, loose stockinette, I don't have any. I can go for a while, but I do like, do the stretches that they show you.
Right. You also like went basically from coloring your hair to not coloring your hair or showing it on the podcast. And do you ever, and also like I noticed in your episodes, like sometimes you would be like all made up with lipstick, like super pretty, and then you would put yourself editing bits and pieces where you would be in your PJs, right?
Yeah.
What's your appearance? How do you feel like you have certain responsibility to viewers to look certain way? Like how did that journey whole thing went? Like at what point did you decide, you know what, I'm done with coloring my hair and I'm gonna put myself editing in PJs?
I guess I never thought of it. I just had in my head that I didn't want to color my hair anymore because I was sick of being a slave to the salon. I didn't even really think about it on the podcast. I didn't care. Hey guys, not dyeing my hair anymore. Like that never crossed my mind. And as far as getting like makeup, the only makeup I wear is mascara. Like once in a while, I'll put some powder on my T-zone, like if I'm going out, but all I do is wear mascara. And the reason is because I look like I need mascara. You can see when I edit in my PJs, and I'm not weird about being on here and not having mascara on, obviously, because I put that in my podcast too, but I don't know.
People ever comment on your appearance? Like are there like ever mean comments?
Gosh, there was one and I can't remember what it was. I remember thinking, did they really just comment that? But I don't remember what it was. And it wasn't anything really bad, but just they made some sort of comment on it.
Right.
And I can't remember what it was. But yeah, whatever.
Do you like stress over thumbs down, like any dislikes? Do you like wonder why they put it there?
I absolutely do not stress over it, but I also totally see the number. So I am always like full disclosure. So whatever I say is exactly how I feel, which I think is one of the reasons that people like the podcast, because when they meet me in person, I am exactly this way. So in all honesty, I will look at the thumbs down number and think, oh, but then I look at the thumbs ups and it's like, why do I care? The people who thumbs down are either doing it because I'm not their people, which would also mean then they're not mine, right? Bye. There are 900 million other knitting podcasts for you to choose from that, you can find a personality that works for you. Awesome. And then the other ones, if there are any that thumbs down because they just flat out don't like me, well, that's okay. Joke's on them, because a thumbs up is the same as a thumbs down.
Right.
Because it's just, people interacting. So
it's actually funny that you mentioned that, because it's true. Like in the algorithm eyes, the thumbs down and thumbs up is the same thing. It just shows that there is interaction between you and your audience. So for YouTube purposes, it's fine either way.
Yeah. There's a guy I watch. He's kind of like a human lie detector, and he'll watch videos and say why they're lying or whatever. And whoever he's talking about in the video at the end, he actually uses it. He's like, do you think he's innocent? Give this video a thumbs up. Do you think he's guilty? Give this a thumbs down. So it's like,
Right.
hello, which is sort of funny because the people who are thumbs downing because they're being snarky about it, it's like, oh, well, that cancels that out.
Right. Well, it's fine because like I have one person who's been putting thumbs down on every single video of mine, and I'm really like would love to meet that person because I feel like it's my number one fan. Somebody who is always watching, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then it's always like, do I know you? Like who thumbs down? Because if they thumbs down you 5 minutes after the video's gone up, that means that they have to have notifications turned on.
Right.
So all that's really saying is, unless it just happened to pop up, I suppose that could happen.
Well, so what are you working on at the moment? Like what's in your project bags?
I have my muscle burra, not Musselberg. It is muscle burra. This is sorry, I'm used to working on the other side of the screen. This is the #2 pencil yarn by Knit Spin Farm.
So you make
I did find out
with the double hat. Is it?
Yeah, you fold it in on itself. So you start down here and then you come up and you decrease. And
I actually made 2 hats like this for my kids and they like love it. So it's been already like 3 years or something since I first made it. So first I made it for my daughter. My son saw it and was like, I want to have a hat like that. So I made him different colors and like they still wear it.
I love them. The We Share Needles podcast had a Cal, a knit along, and I'm like, well, what sold me on it is they said it was like the sock head, but with no ribbing.
Right.
And I was like, ooh, well, stockinette, heck yeah. Well, then I made one and absolutely loved it. And this is my 3rd one.
Right. No,
Like everybody's getting one.
It's a fun project, but it's also like it's double the warmth and you don't see any loose ends there. So it's like very neat finish and you can reverse them and wear them on both sides. So it's like super cool, actually.
Yes, I love it.
Do you like knit alongs?
Yeah, I don't put pressure on myself about them. You know, like if I see one, I'll do it. And I always joke because I did make it with the muscle burra though. I'm way, you know, like they're all knitting one and I want to knit one too. So let's do it. And I think a lot of podcasters are terrible at their own knit alongs when they do them. You know, they'll say, oh my gosh, I didn't even follow or didn't finish my own knit along. And I'm guilty of that as well. So if I feel like knitting it, and that, I love that pattern. And then I have other stuff. I want a shawl. I want a shawl on the needles. I haven't had a shawl on the needles in a while. I think I have 2 sweaters. I finished my basket. This is fresh off the, I don't know, what would you call it? Needle, I suppose, for my yarn condoms.
So like, since you do so many things, right? You do embroidery, you do baskets, you do knitting, you do crocheting, like all of this stuff. Do you ever combine them?
Oh gosh, you are the best question asker. Sometimes I did that visible stitching by, oh gosh, I have the book, or visible stitching, visible mending on my jeans. I did that. I have needle felt onto knits. I had a bad skein of yarn that had a bunch of breaks in it. And I just needle felt the holes shut. It was the Multnomah shawl and I love it.
Right.
And so I just needle felted the holes. As far as design, like adding the design elements, I can't, or combining the design elements, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know I've done it.
I mean, I just know that I saw the mitts that you knitted with the moth. And there is like the double stitching there that is sort of like sewing on the knitting. So that's the reason why I was wondering, like, if you combine embroidery with knitted stuff.
Yeah, double stitch I've done, obviously, but I have a grand plan for my sewing room or my craft room. So I have a stuff room and a craft room. craft room is where my sewing machine and everything is. And here's the thing with me doing all the things. I want to do all the things, but I don't have enough hours in the day to do them. So I want to embroider. I've really been, getting the bug lately, but I need to fit it in. So the craft room is where my sewing machine is. And I don't like feeling like stuck in the room, but I need a cutting table. It's too low where I'm at now. And I want to have open doors with pegboard. I want to paint the pegboard and then cross stitch in it with big, fat, bulky yarn. How cool would that be?
Right. Well, it's almost like, it reminds me, I was interviewing Ann Yunsen and she knitted a fence, this Shetland lace. So she just took the fishing wires basically.
Yeah.
And she knitted the whole fence on like this huge needles. So I mean, it's similar idea of like cross stitching with super bulky yarn,
Yeah. I've seen people do it with hammocks. They use like broomsticks for the knitting needles.
Right. I think
Yeah,
they were even like thicker. Like somebody actually made her, I think it was like good size needles.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that'd be fun. I like trying all the things. I'm definitely an outside the box person when it comes to art, which is funny because I'm a pattern follower. I don't do a lot of mods.
Well, so you mentioned that your first scarf went to Salvation Army, and I told you we'll come back to that. What happens to all the stuff that you make? Is the stuff stays in the stuff room, or is it going to Salvation Army like once a year?
Well, now it's not going to Salvation Army because it's real wool. Now, if I have something that I'm just not wearing, I gift it to a loved one who I know will appreciate it and, take care of it and blah, 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 or at least know how to wash wool. But with the acrylic stuff, like if it's real wonky, that goes to Goodwill. I mean, that scarf was like, it was my first one. But I loved it, man. I loved it. It was like pink and blue and yellow.
Do you subscribe to the idea of knit-worthy recipients? Do you think like some people are knit-worthy and some are not?
Yes.
So who would be not knit-worthy in your opinion?
If I've made you a gift and I've never seen you wear it, I won't make you another one. I'm not mad about it. That was on me, right? I made you a gift, but if I never hear anything about it again, I just won't make you anything else. And that's cool. Because there's lots of people in my life that I like to knit for.
Right.
So I don't get mad or anything.
Do people ever give you gifts, like handmade gifts?
Oh yeah. Mama Jean, I don't know if you watched any episodes with her, but she's my stepmom and she quilts and does a lot of embroidery. So I make her socks. She's made me quilts. She embroiders me things. There's a sheep back here right there. It's rug hooked. Mama Jean made that. So yeah, other people make me stuff. I love it.
Do you feel like crafters make the best gift recipients?
Well, yeah, because they appreciate the work that goes into it.
Right.
And the time, even if it's something easy, stockinette, I mean, you're knitting on it for hours. Like someone has sat down and said, I love this person so much that I'm going to spend all of these hours making her this really cool thing.
Right. So you mentioned that half of your family is artsy and half of it is crafty. In your mind, like I have a friend who is an artist, and one time we were organizing this baby shower and I asked her to make something. I wanted these clouds like cut out of paper with like big raindrops with blue color to show that it's a boy. So I asked her to make those and she was like, I'm really not crafty. I wouldn't even know how to start that. In your mind, is there a difference between arts and crafts?
Yes, only because of the medium. Like, so an example would be my grandma's, right? So my grandma Peg, I would say, is an artist. She painted murals on our, like, these closets we had. She was an artist. And then my grandma Nada was more crafts, which is the stuff room. Like, she's in this stuff room a lot. She did like the plastic canvas mug rugs, you know what I mean?
Right.
So in that way, those are different things. But to me, it's all one big thing.
Do you think like people think about arts as something worthy, whereas crafts is something?
Oh, like pinkies out? No, yes, there are people out there. There always will be. I don't, but there are people, just like there are people who turn their nose up at acrylic yarn. There is a time and a place for acrylic yarn.
Right.
You know, I have plenty of knit worthy people in my life who are acrylic knit worthy. You know, like I wouldn't give them non-superwash wool, but they are very knit worthy, you know, like,
my kid is allergic to wool, so he gets everything acrylic right there.
Yeah, see,
you know, there is a reason for that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what's your like big vision for your channel? Where do you see yourself another 3 years from now?
I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. I haven't even thought of that. My brain doesn't work that way, I guess. I just am enjoying the ride. And when it's not fun anymore, I won't do it. Or if, you know, like, I mean, life circumstances might happen. Who knows, you know, like for right now, I'm just enjoying all the friends I'm making and all the cool things that I get. I mean, viewers send me things, they're like other makers that I would never know existed. And that's one of the reasons that I share them on the podcast, because I think back to when I first started watching the Knit Girls and had no idea what a project bag was. Right. The first project bag I ever bought was like a little one socker. You know, you could fit one sock in it from Pitaloot. They sewed bags, and I'll never forget it. Like that was me dipping the toe into this world. So the fact that I can share all these awesome makers with everyone is really cool. Right. I call myself an enabler.
Where is Instagram in your life, like in comparison to YouTube? Like what comes first, and how do you use Instagram?
I have all my Yarny people on Instagram, and I share things as I do things, like when I block stuff, and you know, I'm not a slave to it. I'm definitely not on it for hours and hours. I check my notifications, but I don't really get to scroll through as much as I would like, but it's because I want to be knitting. So that's why I don't. And then YouTube, I just upload the video and let it do its thing. And then every once in a while when I have a minute, I'll reply to comments.
Right. But like, do you feel like your people overlap on both platforms, or do you feel like your YouTube viewers, subscribers are more of your like support team?
I feel like the people on Instagram just get to see a little bit more. I think a lot of my viewers don't have Instagram, so the only place they see me is YouTube, but that's, you know, that's fine. And then the people who are on Instagram will see just a little extra.
So what is this little extra that the YouTube people missing on you from Instagram?
Oh, stuff around the house. We just like epoxied our garage floor because we're remodeling our kitchen. I put that picture on there. Ditto every once in a while. My nephew Cole, I love him. There's lots of Cole pictures. Well, not a lot, but I post Cole pictures, funny stories of just random things, finished objects before I talk about it on the podcast, stuff like that.
So before COVID, like when you started YouTube, but like before everything got locked down, have you ever had a celebrity moment when you would go to like yarn store, festival, or anything, and people would recognize you from your podcast?
No, I remember I had just pretty much started and I went to the Michigan Fiber Festival and I took Dan made these super cool like wood needle gauges and I gave them to whoever, if anyone knew me. And there were like 3 viewers that I met. And I remember thinking, this is real, like they're real living, breathing people, not just a screen that I'm staring at. So I do remember that very specifically, but there was never any like random, oh, I went to high school with a girl. This just happened. I went to high school with a girl and we were really close friends. We were in percussion together. I played bass and she played snare. And she sent me a message and she was like, one of your viewers is the mom of a boy on my son's football team. And I was like, oh, cool. She came up and said that I saw that we were mutual friends on Facebook. And I have a Facebook, but I'm never on Facebook. So I have no idea who it was. And the funny thing about it is that Kathy lives in Washington and we're from Ohio and I live in Indiana. So the fact that someone, that was like, oh, wow, that was pretty cool. Because you don't really think about it until it happens, I guess.
Well, when you come to Rhinebeck, since it's not an if, but when.
Yes.
Bring a little poster. There is a podcaster hill, so you will meet there with all your viewers.
I've heard about the hill. I'm very excited. I was so excited to go in 2022. So, but 2022, we are going. We will be there.
It was actually like the best experience because I went to Rhinebeck twice. So this year was my second time. And the first time I went, I was like basically new at knitting. So I didn't know anything. I didn't know anybody. So it was only like shopping, like I was buying yarn.
Sure.
And this time I hardly bought any yarn. It was all about socializing and meeting people and seeing people I interviewed. Actually, it was like amazing.
I'm so excited just to have all of our people together loving the fiber. It's just there's something about being around like-minded people that's why there's sometimes that I'll sit down to record and just be in a meh mood, and I'll even say to Dan, like, I hope that I can shake this mood, like after working all day. And I might start out a little slow, but then as I start talking about fiber, it just and that's one of the comments that I love getting. I do get a lot of comments on people having a bad day and then watching the podcast and being in a much better mood. And that makes me happy too. I like to know that I can shed a little light in the shadows.
Right. Well, do you ever get inspired by the comments that you receive, like as far as next knitting project? Like, do you ever get ideas for your next knitting project from your viewers?
Yeah, people send me patterns a lot and they'll be like, have you seen this? They enable me just as much as I enable them. So yes, and it strikes me, it's like, oh, I'm going to make that now. Or, I save it in my queue, or it all depends. I'm very a fly by the seat of my pants. And if it strikes my fancy, I do it.
Well, do you have any advice for people who are thinking of getting into the YouTube, or people like me who just got into the YouTube?
Oh, I don't pay attention to the analytics. When I first started, I looked at it and it's really easy to drown yourself in that. I just would say be yourself and do what you love, because people can really tell when the real you's coming across versus someone you're trying to be. I get that comment a lot. I get a lot of messages on that. And have good lighting and good sound. People like good lighting and to be able to hear you.
Right. Well, cheers again. And thank you so much for being my guest today. And
Thank you so much, Irina. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.
Bye.